President Trump often says what's on his mind. He said people that own their own homes, we're going to keep them wealthy. And then he adds, we're going to make it easier to buy. We're going to get interest rates down, but I want to protect the people that for the first time in their lives feel good about themselves. So the global overlook of the U.S. real estate economy right now tells me we are in an exciting window of opportunity for real estate investors to step into the flow of wealth. Why? How? This is the first week of February. Welcome in and happy Wednesday. Welcome to the deal room. Rates are locked in 6%, under 6% for 10 days straight. It's the first time we've had rates under 6% for that long since almost 4 years ago. And I want to share with you several things that you might want to be watching in the marketplace. So first off, the rates as they are right now holding steady. We're seeing them still in the high fives, and we've been under 6% now. As I said, for the last 10 days, they're holding stable, they're holding steady. If you're wanting to refi, now might be a good time. Now, you know, we normally don't buy houses the traditional way, except there's some really good opportunity there. If you are an active investor and you got houses on the market to sell, as we do, to be able to add some urgency to your buyers that, hey, lock in your rate while you can. The Fed has held rates steady in the January update, but March update is coming. In the middle of March, they'll come out and they'll give another update, and we'll see what happens at that time. I anticipate they'll probably be held steady again, as Jerome Powell will still be at the head of the Fed. Trump's $200 billion Fannie and Freddie bond buyback is working. It's keeping the spreads low, therefore keeping our rates low. And no news means no volatility. As you know, a couple weeks ago, we had lots of breaking news in Davos, and then last week we had the Fed announcement. So sometimes there'll be a week where the news is changing, and I'm literally finishing up watching the Fed announcement coming on this live going, oh my gosh, it's changing by the minute. But this week has been a slower news week, of course, with the little tiny government shutdown that happened. They canceled Friday's jobs report, which is kind of a big deal because Friday's jobs report is likely going to signal to us whether March is going to be a holding steady or another rate drop. And now that the shutdown seemingly is being fixed, instead of Friday, it's going to be Wednesday, the 11th, when they announce. So the first day of the Houston event, when they announce the jobs report for January. Without the jobs report, we're pretty well flying blind. So what are we waiting to find out? What is the unemployment rate? Is wage growth accelerating? Is there inflation risk, or is it slowing? And we got deflation risk. Now, we don't know. This is the second shutdown in the fiscal years 2026. The first one, October through November 25, lasted 43 days. And I want to point out, before we dive into Kevin Warsh and what's happening with the new Fed chair appointment, before we get into the deal room live, I want to point out the context of this. This is my thought. I geek out on information and always come back to the 30,000-foot view. You as a business owner, that's what I highly recommend we do. As real estate investors, we're looking going, okay, what's the news? What is happening in the news? And how does it affect, of course, us and our lives and where you stand and all those things? But on the business side, how does it affect our real estate portfolio? So keep in mind, we have a president who is a real estate investor and a real estate developer. And we have a president who says what's on his mind. So imagine you come into office, and I want you to think back from a 30,000-foot view, regardless of your political stance for a moment. Think of it this way. Imagine you stepped into office. Inflation is cooling from being around 10%, very high inflation that was happening in the early 2020s. And you go, okay, let's imagine you listening to this right now. You were just all of a sudden king. What would you do to start slowing inflation, but also help the economy boost? Okay, we got a challenge to figure out. Now, assuming the president could totally control the economy, what would he do to fix it? Now, in that case, is it raise rates? Is it bring home prices down so they're, quote, more affordable? How about the people it hurts? There's lots of people, and I'll mention this in a moment, read a couple of quotes from President Trump, but a lot of people are predicting a crash and some even wanting a crash, except there is millions and millions and millions of Americans who own homes who have good equity, and if a crash were to happen, if the prices were to come way down, they would be tremendously hurt. So what if you have tools in your tool belt? Maybe you have tariffs to try to bring jobs back. You could use the Fed to lower rates, raise rates, and add some effect there. You could work with Fannie and Freddie to get mortgage bonds buybacks, and you start to look at all of these tools in the tool belt. Now imagine you're grappling with all the decisions you got to make. Mortgage-backed securities, supply and demand, Fannie, Freddie. You're looking and you're going, okay, until May, I'm probably not going to have any say in the Fed because Jerome Powell's going to do what Jerome Powell's going to do. And now President Trump has appointed Marsh. Warsh. My dyslexic kicked in. It's a W, not an M. Kevin Warsh. So for all of you looking at this contextually and saying, all right, May likely, knowing that Jerome Powell usually looks back, he's very much a reactionary person, and Kevin Warsh has been someone who very much is a forward-looking person. He's been predicting things in AI and economies for a long time, many years, very smart guy. So you're looking at this and you're going, okay, and at 4% or 3% interest, a $400,000 house, the payments, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance are going to be in the low 2000s. Without taxes and insurance, your payment's going to be about $1,700. I want you to go with me for a moment on this. And at 7.5%, a $400,000 house, your payment's going to be just under $3,000, or if you add taxes and insurance, just about $3,500. So you're looking at a difference of $1,100 a month drop just from the interest rate in the same $400,000 house, which is about the median price range right now in the U.S. So I want you to keep this in mind as we go through the rest of these updates together. So Kevin Warsh, the new Fed chair, been appointed. This big announcement came in. And of course, Powell's term ends in May, and Warsh will take over if confirmed by the Senate. The credentials of Kevin Warsh, you can look him up and study, but he someone who has a private equity background and had a lot of success there. Trump said about him, I've known Kevin for a long period of time. I have no doubt he will go down as one of the great Fed chairs, maybe the best. He is central casting, and he will never let you down. Sounds like President Trump. I agree with a lot of his decisions, and I always love his marketing ability. And it's always the biggest, the best, and the most huge. So anytime I read a quote from him, it makes me smile in that way. So Warsh looks the part. He's looks great. He sounds great. He's from the right background. He's got the right knowledge. And Warsh has been critical of Powell's Fed. He's argued that the Fed overlooked AI's deflationary impact on the economy and that Powell made unwise choices on inflation. He's been generally seen as someone who favors lower rates, but with caveats. He believes AI is producing productivity, which I believe so too. And he believes this way allow the economy to grow faster without inflation. That means the Fed can cut rates more aggressively without reigniting inflation. Very cool things to know. I share this not to geek out too deep on the information, but to share with you as we move into 2026, we're in a very cool window of opportunity where I believe housing prices will continue to stably rise, and where right now, if you are buying traditionally, or your buyers are buying traditionally, locking in rates while you can is a smart thing, and locking in price while you can is a smart thing. I mentioned last week the refinance surge, 156% increase year over year. This was mind-boggling to me from the MBA, the Mortgage Bankers Association, that the refinance index is up 156%. Because rates dropped from 7% in January 2025 to under 6% now, homeowners who bought in the sevens are now flooding the market to refinance. Big shift that is happening. So the $400,000 mortgage payment at 7.25% at $2,700 is now at 5.99% is $2,300 and change. So you're looking at a $335 a month savings, over $4,000 a year. Who thinks that might be substantial for the average American family? Big deal. So again, if you're selling any houses, you have end buyers, I highly recommend you use that as some urgency. Now, Trump, in talking about banning institutional investors, talking about wanting to keep homeowners, quote, wealthy. He said, people that own their own homes, we're going to keep them wealthy. He said, we're going to keep those prices up. We're not going to destroy the value of their home so that somebody that didn't work that hard could buy a home. And then he adds, we're going to make it easier to buy. We're going to get interest rates down, but I want to protect the people that for the first time in their lives feel good about themselves. They feel like they're wealthy people. Now, again, I said earlier, President Trump often says what's on his mind. So knowing that this is where his mind is, you know that the appointments he's going to make, you know that the laws that are going to be passed right now with a Republican Congress and Senate are likely going to continue to favor those policies. Great to keep in mind. All right, so The global overlook of the U.S. real estate economy right now tells me we're in a very cool window of opportunity to buy. We're still tremendously underbuilt. We're still short over 5.5 million homes. We've not been able to see the full effect of that shortage because interest rates has caused demand to be less than what it naturally would be. And so knowing that we're moving into a time where rates will continue to go down and where we're still a few years before building can catch up with the housing shortage at all, we are in an exciting window of opportunity for real estate investors to step into the flow of wealth. Why? How? By helping other people get what they want. We buy on our financing, we take over low interest debts, or we take over and pay the seller lower, no interest payments, principal only payments, and then we sell those on lease option and help people who can't yet get a home move in and buy a house before they're ready. Be ready to buy a house. It's incredible. So put yourself in the position, in the path of progress. So with rates under 6%, refinance applications increasing, and right now rates are holding steady, I recommend in this season, and there's always good times to buy. I'm not suggesting that there's not. I'm not somebody who's preaching at you. If you don't buy a house in the next 7 days, you're screwed. I'm not preaching that at all. But what I am telling you is we are in a very cool window of opportunity. And before the spring purchases pick up, we'd be very wise to go buy some more houses for our portfolio. All right. So use this window of opportunity. Every season is an opportunity. Use it to help you get one step closer to where you want to go.